Hi guys, another hot day in Alabama. Hope y'all are doing all right tonight. It's one of them days that whenever you go out and it's kind of like when you open the oven and it's not baking cookies, it's the pie roast, the moisture and all, and you can't hardly breathe it in. Kind of like that. But hey, a couple of weeks and we're out of it. Fall will finally be here. We're like 4, 5, 6 weeks at the most out. I'm hoping for traditionally the first or so week of September we get a little cool snap where it drops the temperatures down a little bit. So I'm hoping. And good evening. How you doing? I posted, moved and put some more videos in the playlist for the chords playlist. Brett, good evening. Carlos, good evening. Justin, good evening. Yeah, I got up at 7:30 this morning and ran the wife work, and then I ran to go do videos before it got too hot, and then I got back and set up some other stuff. So it's been one of those days, you know. Been busy. Wolf, good evening. Awesome. Herbert, good evening. Herbert, so am I. I am very ready. Tiny Tiger's hot up there too. Yeah, now the heat, you see it concentrating in the west and going higher and higher. John, good evening. Briar Smoke, hello. Tonight I did not have to cook for the missus. It's one of those nights that her, a couple of her coworkers, they go out and give them a pizza and sit and talk about husbands and stuff. So I fended for myself tonight, and I just made me a sandwich. I was good. So I didn't cook tonight for her. Diane, good evening. Robert, good evening. Tiny Titan, yeah, 108. We had a heat index of 110 a day or so ago. Which, as summers go in Alabama, this hadn't been so bad. I remember the ones back in the 90s, literally where it was like 40, 50 days in a row. Every day the temperature was over 100. Where you'd get up in the morning, you'd come outside and be 82 degrees at 6 a.m. And it just sat on top of us. Not a drop of rain, not a breath of air, just heat and humidity. But now it's over Texas. That's moved that way, so we don't have. Ronald, good evening. Gray Wolf, cool. Yeah, that Beaumont does look interesting. Jonathan, good evening. Lonnie, good evening. Hello, Big Bear. How you doing? Brett, since I can break small branches and stuff into firewood, is there justification for carrying a small tomahawk? Yes, tomahawks are very handy for nailing in tent stakes. Busting larger firewood, not have to split it, so to speak, but just bust it up so you don't have to kick it or whatever. Just lots of uses for a tomahawk. And a good tomahawk, the head will slide off of, you can use it as a cutting tool as well. 94 in San Juan. Awesome. Yeah, I've played with hawks, well, especially in living history. The story I told about old Make 'em Cry that I got hanging right over there is my tomahawk, and still my tomahawk that I used for some years in living history. And I've got the cold steel tomahawk up here that I like as well. I like the cold steel, the trail hawk, because it's easy to take the handle on and off. I can fabricate in the field if I needed to. And it's a fairly effective little chopper, and it's not that heavy. By making the handle long and the head relatively light, I can get like the idea of a machete. I use speed velocity to to get cutting power as opposed to a regular axe or hatchet, which has the weight of the head doing the work. I add speed to counteract the fact I don't have the weight. And so I use a Tomahawk. In those 25 years I was doing living history, that's what you bust up your firewood with, split whatever, shaped whatever it was Tomahawk. I've even used it in gun building, rough ass stocks and stuff. Striker, good evening. Thank you very much. Herbert, if you're wanting to get a Blackbird knife, go to stitchgear.com. That's Randy Smith's leather place. He is an authorized dealer for WC knives. And between him and Great Northern Knives, Randy be the one to do down here in the States, because Great Northern is all the way up in Alaska. And he'll get you, he can put an order in for you. So just get up with Randy at stitchgear.com and tell him you're hunting a Blackbird, and he'll make it happen. He'll do what you got to do to get it. Antonio, okay, I'm about to buy a new knife, but I want a full tang, one under $200. Any thoughts on what kind, like a trapper knife or a Bowie or something like that? I would recommend something, in the middle range or something like that, about the size. Just for a hold up. The size of it is about equal from handle to blade size. A full tang that's not terribly thin, because you don't want, when you bear down, blood flex like a machete or something thin with flex. You want it to fit your hand real well, and you want it to be a knife that whatever design you have. Now, this is a woodcraft knife. This also does great with meat and stuff like that, but this design and everything is really meant for working green wood and everything else, and cleaning game and etc. Like a Condor bush lore, like several others. But it's got the backbone to it. You can split wood if you need to, whatever, bear down and crack it a little bit and stuff to get it apart. So whatever you choose, the knife needs to fit you. And don't just go by price. Now, I'm not saying automatically go cheap, but at the same time, find the size and style you like and look for the higher quality. If you don't have a lot of experience, I recommend getting a Condor bush lore. They're like $50-$60. Try it out. See if that size knife works for you. Some people like a longer knife. I usually carry a longer knife, but I've got the experience with it. I come from a butcher knife and a K-bar when I came into bushcraft with it. So I'm used to a longer knife. My rifleman's knife I come from living history is a longer knife. But I have learned to really like the smaller, compact size. And you look at like the Kephart knife. Classic woods knife does a great job. What are the primary functions? Is this going to be used in woodcraft, carving, doing stuff? Okay. Is it primary being a companion where I'm a fisherman or a hunter, and I want something that I can do, processing game with, and also a little bit of woods work? So dial the knife into the job. And then once you find the size, the rough idea, if this is what I really want, then go to the more expensive knives and put the money into it. I had carried every kind of junk knife there was. And the first really high dollar knife I got, other than that, Billy Watson, which was for living history, it was a WC knife. And I'm very, very, very happy. That'll be passed down, every one of mine. WC knives are just bulletproof and are fantastic knives. But make sure what you want them, because if the knife doesn't fit the job that you like to do, it don't matter how much it costs. It's never going to be the right knife. I hate to put it this way, but I'm trying to save you the money. You can't buy experience. I wish I could just buy a $600 knife and have the skill set of somebody with 40 years experience. That'd be so easy, but it ain't. And I've tried a lot of different designs over the years. They were just getting rave reviews. This is the greatest knife in the world, and it just did not fit me. Once I got to using it, I carried a Bowie for a lot of years. I can tell you about whatever you want to know about a Bowie. Bowie is a good knife. It's not a good skinner. It's a good fighting knife. It can be a decent, if it's got the right grind, decent woods knife. but it's not a good skinning knife. You got to do the hunt and peck with it. You can't just lift up and run it like a zipper, because the way it's designed, that clip point works against you in skinning. So, but it's a good feel knife, good working knife, but not for that. K-bar, same way. Okay, I'll get off my box. Back up. Let me catch you up. Okay. Is there a difference between the Master Woodsman Blackbird versus Master Woodsman, or is it essentially the same knife? There is a difference between it. The Blackbird is a refinement of my knife, and the old knife you see in my videos is the prototype for the Blackbird and the Master Woodsman. The Master Woodsman is a little bit broader and a little bit longer, whereas the Blackbird is really shaped up, a little thinner, a little more focused, and works better as a woods knife and as a meat processing knife. So it's like the refinement of my old original prototype. If you were going to change that knife in any way, what would it be? I'd say I'd make the blade just a grunt longer and just a grunt narrower, and move the sweet spot up just about to here. And that became the Blackbird. So of the two, I like the Blackbird better. Although I love the Master Woodsman, I like the Blackbird best. Eric, thanks for coming in. Gray Wolf, why do people insist on using a splitting wedge with the axe pole? Yeah, beating up the eye of an axe to do it. A lot of times they just don't realize metal on metal. Well, they think hammers. And there's a difference between a hammer and an axe. The hardness, you would never be able to do. You have to soften a hammer to turn it into a hatchet because it's too hard. But whereas you start beating on the back of an axe, and it's designed to take the shock and impact, and it starts rolling that head, and that's why you got that mushroom back there. I've seen a ton of axes that you had to take a grinder to after somebody had spent a summer splitting wood with them. Those toggles, I believe, are like an inch on that video. Just Walmart has those buttons. It's just a big coat button. It's really hard wood, and it's got 2 holes in it. Go look over there. I think it's like $2.50 for 2 or 3 of them on a card. Axel, I hear you. Hopefully, well, they said they were going back. The cats were going back into production in June and July, so they should be getting to the store shelf now. I'm getting little reports here and there of Walmart got in some, and some such got in some. So start looking. Mid-South Shoe Supply, all these places, start looking, because they're trying to bring them out for hunting season. And then once that little supply is dried up, we won't get any more till next year. So keep looking. But I love Flintlock too. Chuck Miller, good evening. Jonathan Gable, good evening. Sanford, hello. Axel, hello. John, do you have John 123, do you have a favorite brand of Kukri? Mine is a Gurkha House or a Kukri House is the manufacturer. It's the same company, it's just what name you put on it. As I understand it, there's like 5 companies under one roof, and they're all made by Komi, which is Komi, which we would say is a blacksmith or a knife smith. And they make so many in production, so that's what I carry and prefer. If you've never had a Kukri and you want to try the design, I recommend you go get the Cold Steel Short Kukri Machete. Those are decent. Start out with that. If you like the design and it really warms up to you, then put the money and go on up and get one of the others. One very similar to mine is the Afghan Issue. It's a full tang modern one that's basically like mine, but it's not 20 years old. Mine's a rat tang inside of it, and that's a full big tang. Mine's actually a full tang, but It's a real thin tang, whereas that one that's in the Afghan issue, like we think of, like our knives like today, where it's got a big thick spine all the way back, and them Afghan issues are going to run you about $100 or so, and they're really good Kukris. Richard Hayes, good evening. H, what's the best way to clean pine sap and resin off a blade? Hot water. Like coffee hot water, not boiling, but just coffee hot water. Stand the blade in it for 2-3 minutes, and then take it off and take like an old sock, something kind of rough, and rub it, and it'll just melt right off. You can also use mineral spirits will cut it, and fingernail polish remover will cut it. This is a dirt bound knives from Tony Powers Outlaw. It's a knife that I recently bought from him, and it's the knife I'm playing with right now. To me, it's like you took the Condor bush lower and jumped it up. You really improved it. It's a lot better quality. It's Condor base knife, but taking the rough size of it and really refining it, I fell in love with this first time I picked it up. So I'm playing with this design right now. I'm not getting rid of WCs now. Don't start sending me offers saying, like, yeah, I'll take that other one off your hand. I bet you will. I'm keeping that one. But I'm just playing with design. I really like it. I'm doing it as a daily carry right now. Joe Healy, hello to New Hampshire. Guy, Hella is a very nice brand of knife. They're very good quality knives. Don't get it? Not yet. It's been so hot, I ain't been going outside and playing with it. But if I broke it, I haven't. I will get around to fixing it. Don't worry. I know how to do it. I just haven't got around to it. Mitch, yes, I will. This fall, I'm planning on going down there and spending a weekend and doing several videos with him. It is. I'm waiting. We're both waiting for it to cool off. Francis, and he's in his 80s, and he's only got one lung due to combat, military, and all kinds of other stuff. He's shot up and hurt, and in the heat, he just can't breathe. And I'm getting where I don't breathe well in the heat. So we're going to wait it cools off a bit, and then we're going to do some more videos. Ed Cotter, if you'll send me the pictures, go to my Facebook page, Blackie Thomas. Send me a thing there and say, hey, it's me. And I'll be glad to look at any pictures and give you my 2 cents on it. JT's Survival Systems, you're welcome. Okay, Nathan, the sleep system, how big is bigger guy? Because the average person fit into the sleep system, it's pretty generous with all the bags together. And at one point, I don't know if they have them right now, but Kaufman's there in Sampson, the one that I always talk about, they had them for like $150 or less. I think it was like $135 was the complete system with the Gore-Tex outer bag, the bivy bag on the outside, the black bag, the patrol bag, and the compression bag all together. And there's another bag that will also snap in that the Air Force had that replaces the black bag with it. So you can technically put 4 bags together, but I think like 135, 140. But depending on how big you are, I'm 5'10", 200 pounds, and I can spin around in the thing. There's plenty of room there, even with winter clothing on. Cow tipper, howdy. All right, Eric, cutting tools, axe, camp axe, hatchet, or tomahawk. What are your thoughts? Okay, what are we doing? axe, we're constructing something, or it's in the dead of winter. If I'm pulling trees, it's going to be a full-size axe, backed up by a saw. If we're traveling, we're going from A to B on a camping trip, or we're canoeing or whatever, camp axe. Winter, same. I want to bust up a big pile of firewood. Do a lot of down trees and knock off limbs with just one or two blows and bust it up. We'll haul it easily back to camp. Camp axe. Hatchet. Small stuff I'm wanting to split down, especially if I'm carrying a little stove and I've got to make stove wood. Tomahawk, best all-around cruiser because it's lightweight, does the job, it's easily to take apart, make compact versus the other two. Kukri in that list. Kukri, EDC carry. With the Kukri, I can do all the above to some degree. It just takes a lot longer to take down a tree. Stephen, yeah, the thin ones are fast, and depending on what you're dealing with, the kind of trees and stuff. If you're like, I have friends down in Florida, he gets the Syrupite, which is the thin Kukri, which is basically a machete, and fantastic for him. The biggest thing he's dealing with in that scrub oak down there is that big around. One hit right through it. You don't need a heavy one. Now where I'm at up here, I'm still in a semi-tropical jungle, but I have oaks and black oak, post oak, and all kinds of hardwoods up here mixed in. So I've got one that's a champura, which is champura, which is a chopper, thicker, it's basically a hatchet. And then if you go further north, you got to get something bigger and stronger. But it depends on what you're at. If I was going to be staying in South Florida, I would get the thinner. I've got my thinner one up there. I'd use it more because it's so light. Or then the Kukri from cold steel would work as well too, because it's mostly small, light stuff I'm going through. Mitch, what's your favorite brand of 20 gauge shotgun to you? H&R single shot 20 youth model with an adult stock put on it. It's about that long. That's what I got hanging right over. That's my favorite woods running gun. Modified choke in it. Anything, and I got a 9mm and a 38 special insert to drop into it. And if I got a 45 and a 410, I would have like 30 calibers I could drop into the thing and make it go bang. So, John, 123, do you use a multi-tool for that, or do you use a Swiss Army knife? I use a Swiss Army Fieldmaster. That's my EDC carry. I do own multi-tools, but I rarely ever carry them. To me, a multi-tool is a pair of pliers. And I know many of you young guys that was your pocket knife, was a multi-tool. I even got the original Leatherman from the 80s. I still got mine around here somewhere in my collection. It was a tool to me. It's like I'm carrying a Phillips head screwdriver. I just view it, me personally, I just look at the multi-tools as a toolbox, and there aren't many Phillips head screwdrivers on pine trees. So I took the Fieldmaster, that saw, those scissors, and the same basic set of tools, more compact, does the job. And it's got that package hook, which is great for doing bank line and stuff, pulling blood tight on it, sewing all, toothpick, a straight pin, all kinds of stuff. That's my preferred EDC carry, is the Fieldmaster. Oh, Donald, cool. Johnny, okay. I have a Pathfinder Canteen cook set. I can't find any Canteen pouches that will fit them and attach to my LBE. Now, I believe SRO was selling a Canteen carrier that would hook to that at one time. They may not at this time, but good question. And I do know what LBE, load bearing equipment. I'm that old. I do remember that. But I thought that SRO sold the pouches that would attach into. And if not them, I would recommend contacting Campcraft. And Jason Hunt, I know he makes carrying pouches. He may have something you could drop it into that. Nathan, okay, 6'3" and 300. I got you. You're going to have a tough time finding anything that fits you. My good friend Dan Lutz, who is 6'7" and right at 400 pounds, was the same thing. Everything came up to here. So what we got him was a One Win Outdoors, which is the hammock company, extra large top quilt. Now this is like a big poncho liner that is so big and so long that Dan could get into it and hold it up over his head, and it had plenty of room. That's what he slept in. So you may want to get that like a base layer for you to put on, and then put other layers on top of it, because finding a sleeping bag to fit you is going to be a challenge. Um, I don't know if you can get into the you probably can get into the military sleep system, but I don't think you'd be comfortable. It'd probably be too snug, because your dimension outward would fill up that capacity. Whereas I'm 200 pounds, but I'm relatively small in diameter. I'm kind of dense up here as well as other places. And so because of that, it'd probably be better to do that. But for the big guys, they do make big sleeping bags. You just got to do searches for them. And if you'll find one now, it's going to be hard to find, guy. It's a casualty bag. I've seen them. I've seen Sportsman's Guide had them before. That's designed not to be it is as big Arctic sleeping bag is what it is, but it's designed to put a wounded man in it. And so it's a lot bigger than a regular sleeping bag, because you got to put stuff in the bag with him. See, and it's where they unzip it and open it up, and they work on you, and then they zip it up when it's in real cold conditions. You're laying there for transport or something. But it's called a casualty bag, and they're rated to be, hell, you could be 600 pounds and get one of them things. You're supposed to be able to put up to three adult men in the bag at one time. So that tells you how big this thing is. And but you just gonna have to look. They do pop up on the surplus market every so often. You just gonna have to hunt it. Gray Wolf, okay, sounds good. When you say you're talking basically about a capper or a breakdown tool for it. L-shaped nipple wrench. Okay, I got you. Yeah, kind of like the old original Walker wrench. Yeah, that'd look good. I can give you a dimension idea. I take a 5 millimeter deep well socket. $5 millimeter deep well socket. And I cut a notch in it. Just take a Dremel tool and cut the notch. And that is my tool for taking out nipples out of cabin ball revolvers. It'll never soft out. It won't break. You can sit down and put some weight on that and turn it and get it off there. I've clamped the cylinder into a vise, put it in the oven at about 100 degrees for like 30 minutes. Then I take it out and let it come up to where I can pick it up. And then I put it in the freezer for an hour, shrink it up. And any internal welding that's gone on due to rusting or whatever, it broke loose because the metal expanded. Now it's contracting. It kind of broke it loose. And then I chalked it up into a vise, clamped this down, and I've got a pair of vise grips and lock on this so I can put my full body weight down. And something's coming out, but that's what I do. But if you get one, that tells you how big that opening needs to be. And it wouldn't be too hard, really. You see how that thing's shaped? To cut that off and put the metal in from the backside to form the time, just make it a two-piece. You forge weld into a one-piece, something like that. Be kind of cool. Just an idea. Put that back, or I'll forget where I put it. Right there. Tracy, I agree. The old Boy Scout knife is a good knife. DIY specialist, what do you think about real fox fur hats? Are they warm enough for harsh winter conditions? Not by themselves. Fox's fur is very luxurious, thick. It is very water repellent. But the hide itself is not very thick. So you need a liner inside of it, like a wool liner. I know this because guys in living history, we would make hats. A badger was the best to me because it had a thick hide. And I had a badger hat for a long time in my living history days. But foxes, Arctic fox, yes, they have thick hide. Lower 40 fox, no, hide's too thin. And you got all that hair, fur, but it doesn't hold the warmth. Well, you got to put a wool liner inside of it. It's like that's what we did. We put a wool liner in them. Depending on where you're at, if you're in some place warmer, yeah, it'd be great. Yeah, Jeff, you're doing a cowboy role. I understand, and that's sometimes what you got to do. It'll okay. It'll kill or it like all. It like all. Okay. Hello, Blackie, and everyone else. Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you very much. DIY real fur can be better than synthetics in a given whatever. But it's just like all these guys think of it this way. You know, the big old huge woolly pulley sweater, military issue woolly pulley sweater. You'd think, man, that's going to be so warm, so thick. It's not. It's a inner layer. You need some on the top of it. So if you take and put a woolly pulley on and then you put a windbreaker over the top of it to keep wind from blowing through that, man, you're golden. You're warm. But putting it on as an outer garment, you'll freeze your butt off because the air goes through all them little weave holes. So it's meant to trap warm air in non-moving air environment. Same thing with the furs. So if you get like Arctic fur, Arctic wool, something from up in that kind of cold country, wool does great. Beaver does great. It's one of the reasons the original guys wore so many beaver hats in the winter. Plus, fox, like wolf, snow doesn't want to stick to it. It naturally slides off of it. So if you're in heavy snow country, that can be a real advantage. You just got to realize you got to put a little bit of extra layer on the inside to make them work together. Edgar, was it fire ants? Where are you at? Brian, good evening. Ryan Ball, Blackie, what is your go-to meal for an overnight trip? It's just me. Where I'm not doing anything particular, I'll take a slice of Spam and one of them single packets, chop it up, put in the bottom of a canteen cup, put just a touch of water in it, not much, and bring it up to a hot heat and kind of like sear, boil, burn a little that meat. And then I'll bring the cup up to about 3/4 worth of water, let it come to a boil, and I'll dump in a pre-measured amount of camp taters, which is a pre-set up brown gravy mix with instant mashed potatoes stirred all together. Camp taters is what I call that. That go-to for me will give me plenty of stuff to get me through a night without a whole lot of muss or fuss. That's just me. James Singer, good evening. Chuck Miller, howdy. Okay, I jumped a minute. Okay, let's see where we're at. Okay, there we go. Wolf HD. Um, Not sure, to be honest with you. I've been out of it so long, I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, gray wolf, river otter. Oh yeah, but you can't hunt them in Alabama. But I've heard about you guys up there having too. John 123. DIY special. Thank you very much. You're welcome. This is a Boy Scouts Explorers. Remember they had Explorers that was boys and girls mixed together. They called them Explorers. Boy Scout Explorers Scoutmaster hat, which is crushable felt from the 1990s. As I understand it, they're still available. And I bought this one new to replace the Stetson I had that looked a lot like it, which was a Confederate slouch hat that I had lost, had been stolen from me. And I got this in about, I don't remember exactly, but it was dead somewhere around like 93, 94, because I definitely had it in 95 when I started doing the Boy Scouts summer camp where I was a shooting sports director from 95 to 99. I was a shooting sports director at Camp Alaflow. And so that's what it is. And as far as I know, they're still available, but you're going to have to wear it 20 or 30 years to get a good patina on it, like yes, like mine. You know, it's got a little bit of sweat equity in that thing, and that light felt, that was the name of the company, I think it was. I've got a brand new one. I like this one so much that within it, like 6 months of me getting this one, I bought another one, and it's in a box up there waiting for this one to give up the ghost, and I'll dig that one out. But I've got, what, right at 30 years on this one now, 25, 30 years. So hopefully between the two of them, it'll take me all the way. The gray wolf, the wolfer, the old military issue uh, Arctic mittens had a big old patch of wolf fur on the back of it, so you could blow your nose on it, or wipe your face or whatever, and blow your nose, and it would stick to it, freeze, and then it would, but it wouldn't stick fur, but it'd freeze, and you could do like that and sling off. I had a friend of mine that was an instructor in the Arctic school. That's what that's for, so you can blow your nose. You can wipe around your eyes and make sure you get the ice from around your eyes where you're crossing around your eyes. So it would always be smooth, clean fur, not a block of eyes. Mitch, what's your second favorite kind of hat to wear in the woods? A boonie hat. I wore a boonie hat for most of my youth when I didn't have the old Stetson like this. If we were going canoeing or something, there was a danger I could lose my hat, I wore my boonie hat. Or if we were sneaking and peeking and trying not to get noticed, a lot of times I was wearing a boonie hat. The wide brim, about this wide a brim boonie hat, not the short one, but wide. I still got one back over there. Buckeye, thank you very much for letting us know that Walmart has started stocking them. They should be stocking them right now for the uh, fall, for hunting season coming up. Edgar, yeah, it could be that. But if they bite you and you swell up like that, you may be allergic to them. Good evening, Tennessee Smoky. Grandpa Buckshot, that's cool. I used to take, remember the old sea ration pilot bread, the cracker? I would take them and put them in a canteen cup, a tang, in the morning and let it swell up and eat it kind of like an orange flavored cookie. Um, Back in the days when we were doing long distance, survival campouts along creeks and rivers, being boys trying to stay out of the house because if you was at home, mama had something for you to do. You could stay in the woods a lot. Bill Drive, well, thank you very much for dropping in from Australia. Yep. Instant rice is good. I also used to carry a can of the canned Castleberry barbecue and quick rice and make barbecue and rice. Usually went very well together very quick. Tennessee Smoky, if in your reenactment experience, how would you define the possible bag or pouch? Okay. Usually for us doing trekking and stuff like that, there was the shot pouch. Shot pouch was a smaller bag. It held whatever made the gun go bang. Then you had a haversack, which normally had other things like your fire starting kits, your etc. in it. A possibles bag was usually like the add-on, and you'd sling it on there, and that was the extra food, the hunk of bread, the hunk of salt pork, whatever. It was the extra bag. Now, some people that wanted to combine all this would have a double pouch for a haversack, and they had like a possible bag was what we'd call a haversack. It just depended on who was talking and what they were doing. But in my day, what we spoke about was that a possible bag was like an auxiliary bag. It was just an extra bag, and usually it was a plain, white linen or canvas bag, not as well made as the haversack or in the haversack usually a waterproof canvas or old or something strong, maybe even leather. And then you had the small shot pouch, and so it was always going to have the haversack and that. And then a lot of times that possibles bag was a gathering bag. So you gathered up tinder, you whatever. It was the possible grab bag. The way we did it back in my day. Edgar, be careful with dried onions. You will smell like onions. Very true. And there are a lot of big animals that like the smell of onions. Okay, where are we at? I jumped again. All right, there we go. All right, catching up. Y'all doing a lot of good talking, guys. I'm catching up. Yeah, the gray wolf, the old parka. If it wasn't wolf fur or that synthetic stuff that the Air Force put on it, your breath would freeze on it, and after a while, that thing would droop in. You're sitting there trying to break it off, and it just breaks off, and takes the fur with it. But if you had real wolf fur, the ice would just fall right off of it. You could just shake it and it'd come off. I spent a lot of time in the north doing military stuff. Excuse me, working for a military provider, put radars out and stuff like that. So I was in all kinds of conditions, including blizzards, trying to do a job. And so I had to spend time up in the cold country. It just seemed to always be, if there was a blizzard coming in, we had a radar to go there. Oh, and it's got to go this week or we're going to lose money. It's got to be set up. It's 70-mile-an-hour whiteout conditions. Doesn't matter. It's got to be set up, accountants. Billy Bird. I, for one, would love to see Blackie in a boonie hat. Go look at the Ground Pounder series, I think, and I did a video about me, and I showed my boonie hat. Mr. R, have you ever had any horror stories happened out in the woods, ghosts, demons, anything like that? I've had several things that I can tell you what I was looking at. I've had some scary encounters before with things. But that's for another day. But yeah, best told around a fire was adult beverages. But I have seen, if you spend enough time out there, you're going to encounter stuff. What it is, who knows? Edgar, well, it's one of the things you just got to leave it stuck on your head. Good evening, Bear. Hello. Your mic isn't working. Have I stopped transmitting? Can y'all hear me? What is your favorite shotgun? A H&R single shot 20 gauge youth model barrel with an adult stock put on it. Ah, okay, Mr. R. Beast of Bray Road, hello. Thank you, Edgar. I just if I suddenly go silent or whatever, do whatever, internet connections, whatever, y'all let me know in the comments. Okay, Mr. R, what was the weirdest paranormal experience you had? Myself, Rick Braden, a young lady named Michelle, and David Hobbs got bored. We'd all got off work, and we were all at Rick's place at about 10:30 at night, and we decided that we're going to ride down to Dead River, which is a uh, river bend on the P River that goes through a lot of timberland. It's like 5 miles from the road back down there to it. And it was just a local hangout, and we decided just to ride the four-wheel drive pickup down there. Me and David riding in the back, Michelle and Rick in the cab driving. And so it's a windy, turny, type thing. It's Saturday night, nothing happening in Lower Alabama type deal. I'm just gonna ride down the river. And as we're two turns away from the actual place, when you go to a football game at night and they got the stadium lights on, that intense light, and you have to be just outside the stadium and you look up and you'll see a tree and you can actually see the shadow. The light is so bright that you see the shadow up there in the tree. That's what happened. We saw some sort of light coming out that through the top of the trees was that bright. And I went, I'm thinking, damn, somebody's got a serious light bar down here, a couple of million candle power. What is this? And we did the next turn, and when we came out, total blackness. Not a bit of light. Now, this area is the size of a football field where the river goes around behind an island and then comes back. So like a horseshoe like. And we called it Dead River because of high water, it cut the island off and became a separate island. But at low water, it just went around that island and it dried out, leaving a huge sandbar. It looked like a beach. It was white sand. There were no pickup trucks, no cars, nobody there. This is usually the hangout place for the teenagers. And nobody there. And yet, all of us saw this light just moments ago. And so we thought maybe they're up on the island. We looked and we investigated the place, found nothing. And then as me and David were standing on the riverbank, David, right beside of me, suddenly reached out and grabbed my arm and pointed out into the water. You could see, starlight on the water, and probably 30 feet out, there was a very dim red light. Well, now, knowing that on the other side of the river is a military landing area, an auxiliary landing area, and sometimes the National Guard would come down there. And the thought that went through our head was one of them red lens flashlights. So we tried hollering, trying to get somebody's attention. Nothing, just silence. Every so often you'd hear wind, but there was no wind. But you'd hear wind like something. So we finally decided to leave. We get into the truck. We drove the several miles back, and 2 miles up, it comes out of that bottom and it goes up a river ridge to go to the top. And we're coming up that ridge, down there in those trees, you see this light come straight up like that. The light was so bright on us, we're 2.5 miles away, that it cast a shadow from my hand to the truck, like that. We're 2.5 miles away, and it's that bright a light. No aircraft. We live next to a helicopter base. We know the sound of a helicopter. Nothing. We sat there 20 minutes in that light looking at this thing. And then finally the light's still going on, just like that. And the light went out. It was 10 years before we found out what it was. It was a military drone they were testing down there from Fort Rooker, and they knew the local hangout for all the teenagers were, and it was called the Sarge. Size of a trash can, had a landing light on it, and it was a early drone. But that was one of the most weird experiences, that you're looking at something and it does not make sense, especially this light that is so intense and goes out. Well, you know, if you're trying to do a surveillance drone, what are you going to use? Go to the place where all the teenagers go parking. You could practice surveillance in the dark. You know, we just happened to be the only one showed up that night. But it was 10 years before we found out what that was, when they finally declassified that drone and admitted they'd been testing it down there. So that was one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. Edgar, Blackie, do you like the Taurus Judge revolver? As a revolver, it's a very effective shotgun at close range for snakes, small game, and stuff like that. It is not an effective handgun beyond 20 yards. The rifling in it is a joke. It's really, really thin, so they get away saying it's a 45 and not saying it's a 410, because that would be illegal to say it was a 410. It's a 45, you're putting a 410 shell in. So it's really a shotgun, so you get this big old pattern. But if you think I'm going to plug 45 long cold in it and shoot small little groups out there at 50 yards, you're going to have a hula hoop sized group at 20 yards with it. So as a shotgun, as a handgun, yes, it's fantastic up close, especially for snakes, small game, rabbit stuff up close. Yeah, fantastic. If you're wanting to scale up to the circuit judge, which is the long barrel and the stock on it, my 2 cents is get a pump 410 Mossberg. It holds 5 rounds and it shoots better. It's a $500 shotgun that doesn't do anything $195 pump 410 from Mossberg won't do. But as a handgun, yes, it's a very effective snake gun. Wolf HD, one wind outdoors. Just plug that in. One wind outdoors. One wind is one word. And go to their site and look at top quilt. Look at the extra large top quilt, and you'll see this guy wearing this thing. And there's 2 pieces that snap together. This part gathers up and becomes a foot, and the other part becomes the top of it. And that's what Dan used as a base sleeping bag, and then would add other layers on top of it. So like you can pull an MS over the top of that, and he's got a big sleeping bag to be in. It's just a big other layer stop, but now he's still got the big bag. See what I'm saying? He's just big. Christopher Bryman, hello. We'll hope to be there at the classes. Update on the classes. Waypoint will be doing a video on them himself very soon. The class is going to be, I'm going to be doing a hammock class and talking about tarps. We're going to do a class on stoves and cooking, various kinds of stoves for all the different abilities. We're going to be doing the down and dirty fire starting tips and tricks, ways to build a fire quickly and easily. Just go ahead and cheat, where you don't want to put a lot of time and effort. We'll go all the way from how to do it, you know, woodsy bushcraft style, to how to, let me just build a fire in 5 seconds and let's get it going. You know, that type deal. And we're also going to talk about cooking and a couple other classes. So we've got a rough outline of the classes. Right now we're seeing if the class fills up. If the class fills up, then it'll be this critique. If the class does not fill up, and last I heard we had like 25 or 30 signed up, so it's like 10 or 15 spots left. When the class doesn't fill up, then we can expand because we've got more time for individual one-on-one. See, we're trying to cover for 50. So that's the game plan of it right now. Steve, Blackie, did you ever come up here to middle Alabama to the Talladega National Forest? I have been up there several times, and Dakota had invited me to come up there. He's out of Auburn, and he wants us to go up there in Talladega National this fall whenever it cools off, or maybe in the winter, and do something. If I do, I'll let everybody know. John Donnelly, hello. Mr. R, yes, sir. It was a little bit spooky. Laddermilk, good. I hope you enjoy it. Those underquilts work very well. Yes, sometimes, guys, it's just the internet connection. I've had people say that fade in and out, that on my end, everything's perfect. And I've had friends, and they say sometimes your phone or whatever kind of times out, that it doesn't realize the live is really something going on. It's not counting like watching a video, I guess. And some people's phones, due to their settings, will time out and start shutting off sound and shut off video because the phone's going to sleep. So sometimes you got to reload to get it back up. Gerald Martin, would that be good for a bear? If you're talking about a judge, I would say no. I would recommend something else. Richard Hayes, one win has great gear at a great price. I've been very happy with all my gear, and everybody I know has been very happy with theirs. John 123, yeah. William is the knife master, and he puts so much time. He listens to people with real experience, and he's not scared to burn a piece of steel and try it out. You know, that was the thing with me. Him and Dan were coming up with a WC SK, and we would do these little live secret chats with each other off of Facebook, and to keep it where we could speak about it in public, not give away what it was, we called it the secret squirrel knife. And me and Dan and him would be talking, and suddenly William would just get quiet. You know, it's audio, there is no visual with it. And me and Dan would keep talking, and like half hour, 45 minutes go by, and suddenly just boop, this picture would pop up, and William goes, "Is this what we're talking about?" He just go to the shop and make it. Go in there and take a bar and freehand what we were just talking about and come back. How about that? There was a pickup truckload of steel burned and ground into shapes to work out that design. William loves to make a good knife. So yeah, I ride for that brand. He's my friend, but beyond that, that knife is my knife. I love that. It looks a little odd, but once you start cutting with it, all those little curves and everything just seem to magically start working. And you just like, had I ever? And then when you go to a straight edge knife, it's like, how boring. So it's something. Get one. Once you have one, you'll know why. Jerry Tyndall, hello from Choctaw County, Alabama. I'm a silver wolf. It's tough being old. Yes, sir, it is. But we take it day by day. Derek Rose, still having a Blackbird sack, still getting out and fill it up. Awesome. Glad you're happy with it. Okay, we jumped up again. Buzz, good evening. Okay. Okay, Buzz, need more info on the spring gathering. Okay, the spring gathering will be put on either in the last 2 weeks of March for the first 2 weeks of April, that 4-week window. Why I don't narrow it down any closer than that is because of what kind of winter we're having. Here in my South, we have cold, rainy, that type of conditions, and you hit that magic point and suddenly it's 80 degrees. If I go too early, then we have a good chance for having highs in the day of 48 degrees and it being mist and rain all day. Kind of lousy conditions to go out and camp out at a big gathering. On the other hand, if I push it too far back, we end up with too many mosquitoes. So I look at what the weather is going to be, usually in December, and see how our winter is stacking up, and then I pick the time. So you're going to know it's in there, but we will have, now I'm expanding it to a full week, and that first weekend will be the Silver Wolves classes, and I'll put out all information on what's going to be done, instructors, etc. And so those of you that are overseas that want to come to it, and I've got people in Australia, Germany, England, New Zealand, and I think one in France that says that when they give me the final on it, they're going to come to it. So that's one to do, because you can come over, be there for the classes on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then my event starts and just runs until the next Sunday for camping. So you can come over and stay the whole week and be with me in camp. And we will have official classes on the first weekend, and that's just a camp out from then on. And of course, you can still learn something. I'm there. Just come up and say, Blackie, I want to learn. We'll hit the dirt. We'll make it happen. It'll kill Blackie. To help me out, what's the best way to clean a wool felt hat to make them last years? Okay, number one, when it starts getting a little gummed up, okay, take in the bathtub, fill the bathtub up, and just gently put it in and let it soak. Don't agitate it, don't nothing, just let it soak for about 20 minutes. Pull it out. Let it drip dry like 2 or 3 minutes, and then I take just a drop of woolite and put it onto a tube sock. Wring it out, put a couple of drops of it on there, and kind of wash the hat. Rinse it one time, and then set it on a basketball or something to let it dry. Don't put it in the sun. Let it dry at least 6-8 hours in the house or whatever, then you can put it out to final dry, but let it kind of take that shape. And that's how I've got this hat to last this long. It's getting to the point now I need to do another wash on it. And how do you know when it's time to wash? When you press on it and it's not being flexible, it feels like it's getting like leather, that's the time to clean it up. Otherwise, I just let it go. Most people try and scrub something clean is what wears it out all the time. Mr. R. Blackie, do you have any movie recommendations? Woo. Hatchet was a good movie about a young man who survived in the wild. That's a good movie. As far as documentaries and stuff like that, I'd really have to think about it. I'll be honest with you guys. I haven't had a TV in my home since 2013. I watched the Alabama-Auburn game in 2013, and the day after, my TV went out, and I've never replaced it. So, and I don't watch a lot of movies or TV or stuff. I just see stuff advertised. So I don't have anything current I can recommend because I just don't really care much for it. Sorry. I like to read a good book. I get on YouTube and I look at people's videos, and that's about my entertainment. Okay. Love me some outdoors. You should do some fishing videos. I know, and I said I was going to do it this spring, and I got sidetracked. whenever that first cool morning hits here, that's the go gun, guys. Soon as I go out there and it's 55 degrees, man, I come alive again. And it's going to be being in the woods camping. We're going to go do this. We're going to do that. And I am just click, 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 click going. Springtime, I'm trying to get last things done. And I got my gathering in the spring. I said this year I was going to bring, and I did. I brought fishing gear with me to my gathering. And I was out there for a week. And I didn't fish once. You know, in fact, like 3 weeks after that, me and Dakota went back out there. And I did fish on that day. But I need to pass on what I know about fishing videos, about how to do tips and tricks and how to twitch fish, how to cane pole fish, how to set lines, things like that. I really do need to do that. I keep saying I'm going to do it, but I'm going to try to get it out there. Richard Hayes, well, happy birthday, sir. 59, you're almost there. Mr. Kingsbury, good evening, sir. Steve Kingsbury, as soon as it cools off, brother. First full weekend of October, 6th, 7, 8, I think it is. We're going out to the lake. Several people going to show out. It's not officially a gathering, but we're just going to go out there and camp out for a couple of days that weekend. So if you'd like to come out and hang out, come on. I'm hoping it's going to be cool. I'm praying it's going to be cool because I am ready for the cool. Yeah, Wolf HD, they have my hot tent, that Penumbra, or it starts with P, but my hot tent that has the stove jack in it is down to $168. How big is that? It is 8 feet across. When you set it up, you can put a cot in it sideways and you got room. It is set up. It's about, I'd say, like a 7-foot peak on a ridge line between 2 trees, and it's like 14 feet from end to end. So it's an 8-foot wide, 14-foot long wall tent. You can flare out the sides and make it into a huge awning. $160 something. I'm thinking seriously about buying a second one so that Mrs. Blackie is going to be using mine. So there'll be 2 of them in the house. So put them things close together, you got a cabin. You know what I mean? Edgar, rolled up bread can make good catfish bait and stuff. You can also take biscuit dough and just tear it off with 2 fingers. Here's an old redneck thing we used to do. We'd go get a can of sardines and we'd get a can of those small biscuits. And what we would do is we would take a piece of sardine and roll it up with a piece of biscuit and then put a hook in it. And we'd catch catfish with that. Fernando, yes. I read that, the River of Doubt book, years ago. Teddy Roosevelt was actually a very good writer. He's a little bit grandiose, but he was a very good writer. I would have loved to have spent a week with that guy in the woods. He was one of my heroes as a young man. Yep, the frog and the worm make it look like a snake's bit into at dark, right at dark at twilight. Throw it out there and shake snot out of it. Where you take a lifelike frog and a long black, like a 10-inch long plastic worm, pinch the tail off so it's a full taper. You don't want that flat tail on it. Hook it onto it. You want to throw it out there after the sun gone down. It's just twilight. Throw it out there, let it hit. 1, 2, 3. Shake like hell, reel it 4 or 5 times, and stop. and let it sit there, and then jerk and do it again. You want the bass to think, they want to look up and see it silhouetted against the sky, and then think it's a small moccasin done latched onto a big frog and they're struggling. They will nail that frog because they're trying to grab the head of the snake and drown the snake. And you might not get a strike, but when you do, it's a fish. It ain't no little bitty sucker. It's the biggest mama there is, because that's a smorgasbord. That's worth my time. It's an old trick, but it works. Edgar, yeah, very true. Going up to Tennessee might be an idea. Love some outdoors. Why did you stop trucking? The penumbra. I drove a truck for a deep felt love and passion of mine, and I wanted to be with my wife. And I was one of them that I was gone out of a 40-hour week. I was gone 30 to 35 hours every week. I loved to run. My dad was a trucker. I came up in 18-wheeler. It was first love to me. But if I wanted to be home and be with her, I had to give up the road. And it tore me asunder, I'm here to tell you, when I came off the road. And our honeymoon, we got married. Our honeymoon, I took her on an 11-state road trip. I left here and I took her to Louisiana. I went north through Mississippi. I took her to a place I knew in Tennessee where you're running through the woods and you run out, and it suddenly you just pop out of the woods and you drop down this hill, and as far as you can see from horizon to horizon this way is a line of trees. As far as you can see that way is flat ground. That is the edge of eastern woodlands where it joins the Great Plains, and it happens right there, right before you cross out of Tennessee into Arkansas, right before you get to the Mississippi River. I wanted to show her that. I showed her the mountains. I showed her ice and snow. We got married in November. And 11 states we traveled in that week. And she learned to ride with me. When we first got married, she thought a 3-hour trip was, oh my God, it's the end of the world. It's a 3-hour drive. I'm going, 3 hours, my God, that's like time between breakfast and lunch. You don't even notice it. And then after she had been with me a few years, there was an event going on. The Eastern Rendezvous was going to be put on in West Virginia. And she said, it's only 16 hours up. We can team drive up, go shop, and team drive back. So we did. We got off work. We took off, and we team drive nonstop, 16 hours up there, to shop for 6 hours, and then team drive 16 hours back so we could go back to work. So 32 hours in the seat driving. Yeah, we had a good time. She'll run with me. I miss it. Even to this day, I miss driving. But I wanted for her. Buzz, Blackie, what's the trick to keep sandflies from tearing you up on the coastline? Good question. The Marine Corps was using skin salt back in the 90s to try to do it. As I understood, that was the only authorized thing you could wear in the Marine Corps up there at Camp Lejeune and all for them. Dr. Rez, Blackie, you look like you're in a hostage video. Yeah, I know. Buzz, awesome. Yeah, blink twice if you're not okay. I'm old enough. I remember whenever those in Vietnam blinked torture in the light. I remember that on TV. I even know the POW tap code. Buckeye 80. They do still make the old military survival books and stuff like that. You can still get them time to time. Now, where to get them? On a Sportsman's Guide, had them for a long time. I'm sure you can get them on Amazon. You know, uh, military survival manual. Do a search for that, and I'm sure those are going to come up. Still see them at gun shows a lot. A night, glad you do. The Heritage 22 is a great little pet gun, a little camp gun, kit gun. They're fantastic. Richard Hayes, good evening. Sleep well. I killed Golden Book of Camping is a very good book. It inspired me as a young boy. I remember finding it in the school library, and I have a copy of it that comes to me whenever Grouch passes. It's in a library collection that he's got of outdoor books and old original books and stuff like that. That's my inheritance from him, because I get a big bookshelf of all his books, and the Golden Book of Camping's in there. Mr. Mark, it was. But team driving, I'd drive 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, and I'd say, okay, give me 2 hours. And she'd jump behind the wheel, and I'd get over another seat, and I'd sleep. I'd sleep 2 hours, something like that, and I'd get up and I'd take it back, and I'd run another 6, 8 hours. It wasn't that bad that way. I mean, with somebody you want to be with, talking. So, no, she's not here tonight. I killed a 22 cap and ball for camping, or just anything. Is a 22 cap and ball. The little bitty the small cap and ball 22s would be like a 22 short and power. Be okay for squirrels or something small, but would not be really effective for anything bigger than that. There's not enough powder capacity. It's only when the 22 transitions into smokeless powder, like 22 long rifle, like a hot Stinger. Stinger is an ammunition that's in 22 long rifle. That or Punch by Federal now would be my two choices for 22 long rifle. If you can shoot accurately, and what do I mean by accurately? If you can hit a golf ball every time out to the distance we're talking about, you can take a pig with it, because you got to place your bullet in a golf ball size target on that head to put him down with a 22 long rifle, if everything goes right. Dr. Rez, what's your most used hatchet? Make a cry. That Tomahawk I got. I've had that one the longest in my collection, and I've had that since the early 80s. 40 years I've had it. Okay, Adam and Eve. I ordered a 73 single action Army Cattleman. I can't find a conversion cylinder for it anywhere. Did they ever make one for it? You're talking about one that looks like the 1873 single action Army, but it's got the nipples on it. That's actually a 45 Colt with that cylinder in it. As I understand it, a 45 Colt cylinder will drop right in it. So there isn't a conversion cylinder. You just get a standard issue Cattleman 45 Colt and drop in, because the bore diameter is 451. It's for shooting cap and ball revolver, which is actually a 45. And so, as I understand it, you drop that in, unless they change that design some way. I don't know. See, I've seen them, but I haven't handled it enough to figure out. I know the easy conversion is to make a cylinder, put nipples in the back of it, where you take the cylinder out and you have to load it by hand over here on the press and put back in it. So it looked like a 73 cartridge gun, but you could compete in cap and ball in cowboy action and SAS competitions because it was a ball. And as I understand, also it would be not considered a firearm, and therefore people who were limited in their ability to have such guns in certain places where they were allowed cap and ball but were not allowed cartridge guns. But I don't know if all they did was change cylinders or if there's some other little gimmick in there to keep you from just dropping a cylinder in, putting the pin back in, and having a 45 Colt, because it's got an ejector on it. You know, if it's got an ejector on it, it ought to be set up for 45 Colt. Just haven't handled one to the point that I can give you any more than that. Yeah, I killed the carpenter's hatchet can be easily modified into a good working. I, like I showed mine, makes a good crafting hatchet, etc. Yeah, they're good for that. John Laddermilk, I'm assuming you meant say 350. Yeah, you'd say yes, you can. They make. Thank you very much, Adam and Eve. They do make the little caps. Look, 38 special. I believe it's Spear. Yes, Spear does them, and it's 38 special shot caps is what you're looking for. And it'd be a blue plastic with a little white cap. You just simply fill it full, do it, and you load it like a regular bullet. You can load it into a 38 or into a 37. They're the same size. It's just power capacity. But yes, you can. And I have loaded and made shot shells for 38s and 44s as well. Gray Wolf, what I would suggest you do is you want to take a cut off log, chopping block. On the bottom of it, go get you a car, not a car tire, but like the donut tire that goes like into one of the small trailers, utility trailers, or goes onto a lawnmower tire or something like that. And if you will wedge it where you got to cut the top of the tire and open it up to wedge that in there. And then on the very bottom, go get you one of those welcome mats. It's a thick rubber welcome mat and put it underneath it. It will absorb the shock, the noise, and won't be nearly as loud on that plywood floor because it acts like a shock absorber to bust the harmonics up. It diffuses the shock wave. So when you hit, the shock wave goes through the wood, then into that rubber, which kind of cancels out the shock wave. So when it goes into the wood, your harmonic of the boom is kind of broken. It'll never be silent. It'd be quieter. They won't think you're beating a drum down the street. You know? Exactly. It was like dampening an anvil. I've seen that done in a house where still had wood stove for people. And what they did was, talking about an elevated wood floor sitting on the whole house is not on a foundation, but on rocks, field rocks that it's sitting on. It's been there since the late 1800s. And the floor was just two by 10 beams, 2x10 boards that were nailed onto the beams to make the floor. And they had a tire a wore out tire from a lawnmower they got somewhere. They split the top so that it would open up, slid that in, put some heavy piece of rubber, which I think what they actually used to go underneath it was the mud flap off of an 18 wheeler. They probably picked up somewhere where it had been tore off or whatever. That's about that thick of car tire like rubber. And they put it underneath it. And that's what they'd sit and split up kindling to go into the wood stove with. Fernando, you're right. You can't convert a brass frame cap and ball to 45 Colt. The frame won't take the shock. It'll crack. Buckeye, in my youth, I hunted just about everything. And so I dove hunted, which was a social event we did that was the beginning of hunt season in September, is we'd dove hunt. I did duck hunting, I did etc. I never really got into stuff like grouse and stuff like that. It's not common in my area. I did quail hunt when I was a young boy, and my favorite was quail, but it was because my uncle and my granddaddy were so good at it, and I loved to just watch them, get doubles and triples. But they had shotguns that were throwing a pattern the size of a house, and they were getting it, but I was never big on it. Now, I did get into shooting ducks for a while. And then one morning, north of Mobile in them swamps down there, I was sitting there and the wind was blowing off the Gulf. It was about 18 or 19 degrees. And I was watching ice form on the edge of the boat we were sitting in. And that black lab retriever named King that we had trained as a retriever was looking at me like, you shoot anything, I'm going to gnaw your leg off. And as my granddaddy says, I had time to reflect. Sitting there in that cold, bitter cold wind with that spray coming off the Gulf and everything, because we don't like 10, 20 miles, maybe at the most, off the Gulf itself, up in them swamps north of Mobile. And that was the time they had just instituted steel shot. So I got to thinking about I had to have the special barrel for the shotgun. I had to have the special shotgun. I had to have the special shells. I had to have the dog. I had to have the permit. I had to have the boat. I had to have the duck stamp. I had to have this. And I had to drive all the way down here. And I started adding up all those had to haves, how much they cost. And then I got to thinking about it. This is a duck. This is one step up from a chicken. Would I pay $700 to go shoot a chicken? No. Can I go down to the Peking Palace, the Chinese restaurant, and get a plate of a very well prepared duck any day of the week for $10 a plate? Yeah. I got rid of the boat, the dog, the gun, all of it. And I have never duck hunted since. Because that was that moment of calculation of, did you do all this for a chicken? No. So that was into my duck hunting right there. John 123, thank you for coming in. Dual 34, hello. Yeah, we would hunt for wood duck, and we hunted for mallards and stuff. There used to be, back in the late 70s, early 80s, a little bit of a flight down in North Mobile up into there, where the wider migration pattern of the mallards and etc. were on the fringe of it. I knew guys that go to Louisiana every year and just eat up ducks. Man, they had a great time on duck. But it just, it was so much work for me. I focused my attention on the other things to pursue. Wolf HD, our quail got thinned out by coyotes and pine wolves. Pine wolf is a hybrid that we have down here that a coyote, as you know, is about so big and weighs about 30 pounds. Pine wolves can go up to 100. And it's a crossbreed between the Alabama red wolf and coyotes. And crossbred, and when you crossbreed a wolf and a coyote, you get a wolf hybrid. You don't get a coyote hybrid. And if those two cross, you grow back up. So they grow back up to a wolf. And we call them pine wolves down here. You'll know the difference. If you go up and you see the track, Looks like a dog track. If you make a fist like that and put it over the track and you can't see the track, that's a coyote or a dog. If you make a fist and you put it over that track and you can still see the track, that's a pine wolf. His track's bigger than my fist, balled up like that. He'll travel 20, 30 miles a day in packs. They'll take down cows. They'll take down anything. When I was a kid, you didn't have to have livestock, guardian of your livestock. Today, you better have a mule in that pen with them goats, or you'll lose animals every night. But a mule, boy, they love to kill canines. You know, big old sassy mule, he will run one down and stomp him. You know, I have seen a mule grab about an 80-pound pine wolf by the scruff of the neck and sling him around like a cat and throw him and go over and stomp him to death. You know, they are not afraid of a pack. They'll chase down a pack to attack them. So we've got them down here, but you got to be just aware of it. They don't bother anybody, but you know, I had somebody recently when I did a video a couple months ago, and I was showing where I put my cabin ball over the top of my hammock. And somebody said, Blakey, what are you afraid of? What do you need that gun for? We have rabid coons. We have alligators. Alligators are not necessarily always found in the water. They will migrate from place to place in dry conditions. I have seen big alligators 2 miles from water because they were going from A to B and just happened to be following in this field to this road going to wherever. You know, we have bear. We have mountain lion. We have black panther. Black panther is actually a jaguar. There's a little piece of history they don't tell you in school, but if you do the research, you'll find out. When the conquistadors conquered the Aztecs, there was a tribe that was on the fringes, technically part of the Aztec Empire. They were slaves to the Aztec. They were called the Muscogee Indians in northern Mexico. And in this upheaval of the Spaniards coming in and taking over, they took the opportunity to run. And so they left and moved up into what is now Arkansas, into the salt caves and places like that, following the salt trade. And then that was in the 1500s. By the late 1600s, early 1700s, they had migrated east and they came into what we now know as Alabama. And they had conquered the 7 indigenous tribes down here and formed the Creek Confederacy. They called themselves Muskogee, but the white man called them Creek Indians because you always found their village on creeks. Well, the symbol of virility, strength, masculinity of a chief or a shaman was a black jaguar. They brought them with from Mexico. They would make pilgrimages back to Mexico to bring a kitten back up here and raise it. So we in the South talked about black panthers. And biology tell you that mountain lions cannot be black. You are correct. But we have evidence of it. I've seen the picture from 1878, 1879. Over here in Mississippi, in lower Mississippi, and it's a little girl sitting on top of a 250-pound jaguar. And the thing says that a black panther was killed in the cane breaks along this and such river. My grandfather talked about in 1932 in Geneva, Alabama, the last black panther in Pea River Swamp was killed, and they hung it up in front of the courthouse in a tree for 2 days so everybody could see it before they finally took it down and buried it. And it was a black spotted jaguar. If you go to a zoo, there's the black spotted jaguar. Oh, but those are not in North America. Yet, if you go look in the book of Scat and Tracks of North America, they'll point out that they have found so many jaguar in Arizona in the mountains. They're only waiting to find kittens to admit they're breeding again in North America. And even though they say that they're not down here at the South, strange occurrence where 3 of them were killed on interstate highways in the state of Alabama in 2020 Obviously, somebody's pet that escaped. I don't know anybody that's got a black jaguar in Alabama pet, but 3 of them were apparently killed by getting hit by a car. So we have mountain lion and we got jaguar. So Alabama, we've got all kinds of weird stuff down here. So why do I carry something? In case I run into a rabid dog or 100+ pound pack of very angry, very non-human afraid pine wolves, where you're just a hunk of meat, or a gator, or whatever. It just makes sense to have something to make the odds even. That's why I pack something. I shall now get off my soapbox. The SLO Shadow 9mm works good. If you can shoot, it's an outstanding piece of kit. That was something I talked about earlier about. I have a chamber insert drop into my single shot 20 gauge. It's 9mm. And it's a 8-inch barrel, I think it is, that drops in. And I have shot on paper 30-shot groups and showed that a 30-shot group at 25 yards is about that big. You'll have a straggler every so often, but the main group will be that big and all 30 shots. That means I can easily put it, if I can put it on a paper plate, that's the vitals of any large animal I can worry about, like a white-tailed deer or a hog. And a good 9mm will penetrate in there and do a good job, because if it's so effective against us, and we're roughly the same size as a deer, chest capacity wise, if it's so effective on us, why wouldn't it be effective at close range on a deer? 38 and 3-7, same way. As long as we're talking short distances, and we are in Alabama, because most time, unless you're setting up on the side of the field, you can't see 50 yards. So if you're in a deer stand looking down, he's in range. And I know guys that are taking deer with 9mm. Cleanly, and it's legal in the state of Alabama. 30 caliber or larger, 9mm counts. Jeff, yeah, there's. I had someone who is decidedly anti-gun, and he said, "I don't think there's any place that I would need such a thing. I can take you to places right now in the swamps above Mobile for an overnight, you and me, and you'll beg me for a gun before sunup, because I'll show you some dinosaurs of big gators and big snakes and hogs and everything else. Yeah, you'll beg me for a gun before sunup, because they ain't scared of you." Oh boy. Well, we've been on an hour and a half. Anybody got any more questions before we end it out for tonight? Yeah, bobcats are making a comeback. I'll tell you what my granddaddy told me, and I have found this to be true in my life. If you see a big cat, bobcat, mountain lion, jaguar in the wild, it's probably going to be at a distance. It's probably going to be at a glancing as they pass through, because you're just outside of their acuity. You'll never sneak up on one. They're just too aware. So you never see one unless you're at a distance and you're still in their movement. However, as my granddaddy said, if you ever turn around in the trail and there's a bobcat looking at you, you were a target. Cats will always attack from the back, and they go for the nape of the neck, trying to sever your spine. want to jump on your back and attack you. So if you ever turn around and there's a big cat coming down the trail looking at you, he didn't just blunder in behind you. Go at him, make a big noise as you can, and spook him off because you were the target. Yeah, so I always look up, which that's always good to do anyway. There's a lot of things up there. I have looked up and spotted game up there of coons, possum, squirrel that you just walk by and never notice there's a meal sitting right there if you wanted it. I've also had snakes on limbs that high up that would just be above head high or whatever. One of the reasons I wear a big hat, because more than once I've been in swampy areas, it got a little rain and flooded water, and I've turned around and looked and be eye level with a snake that's up in a bush, either trying to get away from something or get out of water or whatever. And so having that big hat, you can do like that. You know, you got to strike something, strike that. Don't strike me. I've done that. I've had to do that more than once. Just do that on my head back and back out of there. So hopefully, if he's going to strike something, he's going to strike the hat. Adam and Eve, to my knowledge, no. To my knowledge, depending on where you're at, I think Indiana or Illinois, they've got a different thing now where if I go by a 58 Remington, you've got to do paperwork because they make a drop-in cylinder, even though you may not possess one, but they're trying to make it where a drop-in cylinder makes it a firearm. So reverse backwards, it's what it is when it's sold. But if you ever got a chance, and there's going to be a gun show, drop the cylinder out of your gun, and if you can find another cattleman, and they'll let you take the cylinder out and compare the cylinders for a 45 Colt, I bet you that they're going to be the same, because I believe all they did there was take a 45 Colt and create that percussion cylinder to drop into it, because we went all the way to do all the milling processes and put the cartridge ejector on it when it'll never have a cartridge. See? And so, as far as I can tell, just looking at it, without having something to compare and look at, see if the base pins are the same diameter, if they're the same length. If so, just order a cylinder. And that's something new. It's just a part. A cylinder's not a gun. Just go to the maker of your gun and say, I want to buy a 45 Colt cylinder. And they're probably going to run you maybe $100, something like that. And if it does not fit, you turn around and sell that cylinder. It's just a part. It's not a gun. The frame is the gun. The frame has the serial number on it. Any other part's just a part. So the gun at time of manufacture was, in fact, a percussion gun. Beyond that, I do not know. You're getting into gray territory that I do not know. Marcus Hibben, good evening. Shaky Raccoon, thank you very much. Are all brand cylinders interchangeable? If it's made by Pieta or if it's made by Uberti, that's the difference. The base pins are different diameter. So I believe the Cattlemen's are made by Pieta. And so any of the 45 Colt Cattleman, because that's a Cattleman model, 45 Colt should drop in, because I know that's what they started with. It's just like the Ruger Old Army. They started with a Black Hawk. They started with the Super Black Hawk and made a percussion cylinder and a loading lever to go onto it. So from a manufacturing point of view, they took an existing tooling and made a percussion revolver just by changing the part around. And with that gun you're talking about, I know when they came out, it was because people were competing in the SAS and cowboy action shooting competitions, and there's a black powder competition, and there is, I mean, cap and ball competition, and there is a cartridge competition, right? Well, if you're somebody that shoots the single action Army 73s and you wanted to compete in the other one, but you don't have to want to learn a whole different kind of percussion gun, it'd be the same gun just in a percussion cylinder, see? Load it off the gun and shoot. So you're kind of used to this gun. Whereas it's completely unlike any of the other percussion historically correct guns. And so it's just a percussion conversion of a cartridge gun. See, the way I look at it, again, the only way I could be sure would be to have the two cylinders and look at them side by side and make sure the base pins are the same, they're the same length, and try dropping it in. If it drops right in, put the base pin in, see if it times and works. You got a 45 Colt. Yeah. One other thing, me telling you that, hold on. One other thing. The bore diameter has got to be that, because all of the cap and ball 45, 44s, the 1860 Army, the 58 Remington, all the Dragoons are listed as 44s, but they're actually 45. And when I drop in a cylinder that allows me to shoot 45 Colt in it, cowboy loads, you don't have to hunt special ammunition. It's standard 45 Colt, correct? If your gun was somehow a different bore, they would tell you had to get different sized ammunition. So if they had netted it down to kind of keep it from being converted to a 44, they'd have to warn you, you got to shoot a smaller diameter ball than the standard 45, and they don't. They just say it's standard ammunition, so it's got to be a 45 Colt. There's just a different cylinder in it. Diabolical Debbie, what's your favorite firearm? In handgun, rifle, whatever, I've got a lot of favorites. If you're talking percussion guns, I'm a dear favorite love of a 51 Navy and an 1860 Army. If you're talking about a favorite deer rifle in a bolt action, it's an 03A3 Springfield 30-06. If you're talking about a deer rifle in a lever action, that gets a little murky. I love my Henry in 44 Winchester, but a good old 30-94 is near and dear to my heart as well. Talking about a handgun, a modern gun, a 1911, a Browning High Power, a Season 7.5 are my favorites in the handguns. If you're talking about a revolver in modern, a Smith & Wesson 25, a Smith & Wesson 1917, Smith & Wesson Model 10 are all favorites of mine. There's a lot of favorites. There really are. You know, that's like asking a cook, hello, Waypoint. Thank you for dropping in. We're about to close up, brother. It's like when you're saying, you know, what's your favorite? That's like going into a kitchen and asking a cook, what's your favorite spoon? There's a lot of spoons. Do a lot of different jobs. Buckeye, good night. See you next Thursday. Well, guys, it's been 1 hour and 48. I guess we're going to call it quits. Thank y'all so much for dropping in. And everybody, thank you so much for coming in and talking to me. I really do appreciate it. I'll be back. Thank you very much, Adam and Eve. I'll be back next Thursday night. Yeah. And anything come up? Waypoint. Pink, good evening to you too. Waypoint, understand, brother. Please go back and look at the comments. Feel free to comment. It'll still let you comment for a while. Okay, till next time, guys. I'm Blackie wishing y'all safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.